number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is... Please note, the new number is...
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Black Telephone TV. This is going to be a series where we talk to writers, and we're trying to do something a little different, ask some different kinds of questions than, a lit show, say on NPR, would be asking. We are celebrating the release of the first issue of Black Telephone magazine, which I could not have created without my wonderful editor, co-editor, Lindsay Lerman.
Hi, Lisa.
This has kind of been our weird little vision that came together. And different themes, we kind of decided, let's build this around themes that we're interested in, such as death and lust and communication, memory. So the telephone kind of is that little theme loop through everything. So we came up with some communication-based interesting questions that we have been asking some of the contributors, and now we're going to be putting each other on the hot seat about. So I'm going to have Lindsay go first because I am nervous about answering these questions. So, Lindsay, what is the strangest moment of communication that you have experienced?
And this is about me being on the receiving end of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I think this is the strangest one, and it's sort of a half communication. There's somebody who I was close with for many, many years, and then we had to cut off communication. Well, I had to cut off communication a few years ago. So I'd known this person for decades, and then I had to cut off communication. I can't say why, but it was really important. I had to cut off communication. And so I did, and we didn't speak to each other for at least a year. And then for some reason, we were back in touch in a casual way, and I can't remember why or how even. I think maybe it was email. But so the line of communication was cut completely, and then it was sort of put back together for a minute. And what happened then was so strange. So this person that I'd cut off communication with, he told me that for every day that I had not been in touch with him, he had been writing me a letter. He had this old typewriter. He was actually typing these letters out and putting them in a folder. And so at this point, it had been at least a year since we had been in contact. So I guess for every day he had been writing me a letter. I don't know what they were about, and I probably never will, but somewhere out there is a file of many letters for me that were never sent to me, but I was told about their existence. So it's like a half communication. Were these like hate-filled letters? Were they angry? Were they longing? What was going on in this time that I was not in touch, and you were fired up about it enough to write a letter every day? What is the content of those letters?
This is like, in the next episode, you get murdered kind of thing.
Well, hopefully not. Maybe.
Like crazy town territory.
Yeah.
The unpublished book of the stalker letters of Lindsay, they'll probably never see the light of day.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll send them to Black Telephone.
Right. Oh God, that'd be scary. I don't know. Yeah. But I really want to know, but I also do not want to know.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. No, it's one of those things. Wow.
Okay. Are you ready for me to ask you? Okay, Lisa, tell me about the strangest act of communication that you have ever been on the receiving end of.
So this is my favorite one because it's all I want to talk about ever with anybody.
Okay.
So about a year ago, so this room that I'm in actually is a little bit of a spirit parlor, I guess I would call it. It's a room that I have designated to a spirit, the spirit of a woman named Hazel Drew, who was murdered in 1908 in Troy. Her murder is still unsolved. And what's really strange is I had no idea who she was whatsoever, even though I came to find out that she was actually one of the main inspirations for the character of Laura Palmer in Twin Peaks. Mm-hmm. Because Mark Frost had found out about her because of a ghost story his grandmother had told him. She's like, Hazel Drew haunts the woods. Watch out for Hazel Drew. She's haunting the woods. And so the night before we came to this house to do the house inspection, I had this very strange dream that took place in a room about this size with books lining all the walls. As you can see, I have now my books up, my old record player there. And this woman just appeared. She just materialized.
This is in the dream, right?
Yeah.
This is, yeah.
And in the dream, I was with some guy. I don't know who he is, but I was talking with him about moving into the house. My mind was very much on the house. How am I going to decorate? What am I going to do with this room? I really wanted to turn this into a walk-in closet, actually.
Deluxe.
That didn't happen. I was like, oh, I wish I had room for like a home library. Like, that's my dream. My writer dream is like having a Beauty and the Beast, you know, with the ladders and the things. Like, once I have that, like, I'll feel like I made it. So I'm just jabbering about this, and then this woman appears, and I get just chills all over my body. I am absolutely terrified. I grab him, and I'm screaming. I'm just screaming bloody murder. I'm screaming my head off. I'm terrified. I feel like I'm seeing a ghost. I'm like, who is this person? Why did she come in my dream? What's she doing here? And I'm becoming lucid, becoming scared. I ask him if he can see her. He's like, what? See what? I'm like, can you see? No, can't see her. So I'm like, holy shit. You know, I am literally seeing something in a dream. I'm lucid. And I won't go into all the details of it because it'll get very long. But when I finally did move here, me and a friend of mine, we went looking for her grave. And the story of finding it is also very strange. And it kept this chain of strange communications just continuing. So this has not been my first ghost encounter. I had one before in college, but it is the most involved and by far the strangest, and it doesn't end. There's different manifestations of it. It's not like I'm seeing like a ghost jumping up in front of me, you know, it's not like that. But it is by far the strangest form of communication that has ever occurred in my life, and it continues to be the strangest person I know in my life who is not alive and yet is possibly more active than many people I know who are living and breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. A presence in your life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hazel Drew.
Yeah.
All right. So next question. This made me so nervous. Riskiest form of communication that you have ever attempted?
I think I kind of take risks when it comes to communication a lot, but I do think the riskiest attempt yet is my next book. What I'm trying to do in it in just a very short span of time, like, 120 pages or something like that. What I'm trying to do, I think that is the riskiest thing yet in terms of communication.
What feels risky about it?
The fact that I don't understand the form. I mean, I understand forms, I know how to study forms and pick them apart, but I don't fully understand the form that I'm working in. it feels new and strange to me. And that feels like a risk, because I know that, like, when you're doing something sort of on the edge of what's accepted, there's always a chance of people saying this is absolute utter nonsense and this is bullshit and just be quiet. So that feels like a risk to me. And then also the emotional urgency and intensity of it is, well, frightening to show, right? Like, it's not my self-portrait, it's not me laying myself open. The things I'm doing in this book and the material that I'm exploring is uncharted territory for me, like emotionally, tonally. So that's a risk, because I don't know how it will be received. Although that's not the biggest risk. The biggest risk was doing it, like I've already attempted the biggest risk. I've already achieved that. The secondary risk associated with it is just seeing what happens if people read it and what they think of it.
Yeah. Knowing that they will see it and that you're putting that out there. It's, I feel like, these days a lot of writers are doing OnlyFans and whatnot, and they're bearing their skin. But what a writer does when they bare their soul, to me, that's a lot more scary.
Yeah.
I'm not, and me personally, I don't mind showing my body. That's not scary. Showing what's inside, that's scary. Because that's really you. Your body is just your body,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's just whatever you were born in. You can't control it, But inside, that's like your dynamic. It's the atmosphere of your being, and your past and your future, and your perpetual becoming is what's in there.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Okay, are you ready to answer this question?
Nope.
What's the riskiest communication you've ever attempted that you are comfortable talking about?
That's the tough part.
Yeah.
I feel like I've done a lot of crazy, reckless things in my life, ranging from, all right, I'll pick that one. In my early days, when I was starting to dabble in witchcraft, I never was part of a coven. I never was like, I just kind of was figuring out as I went and doing what felt right, doing what would make sense to me, what felt good and stuff. And I always had like a big fascination with the devil. And I would call him like the Prince of Darkness, sort of. So I had this kind of like Byronic view of, I don't know, some kind of romanticized idea, I guess, of what I imagined that character was. And so an early ritual that I did as a young witch was to conjure the Prince of Darkness and to make love with the Prince of Darkness, which has been an ongoing fantasy since I was a very young teen. And so I did this weird ritual where it was like, I was all in the moment. It all felt like, this like beast, I have this beast fantasy too. So it was like, so I just kind of did this thing. I did this weird, whatever it was. And I would say like the 6 years following it, like during the entire, like for quite a while, years and years, I kept having really unsettling encounters with men. Just meeting very strange men and having very weird, unsettling sexual encounters with them. Just sketchy, weird creeps, and I would find myself having sex with them. And I remember at least 2 instances where I was like literally in the mid coital moment or whatever, and I'm like looking at them, and I'm like, oh no, like, who am I sleeping? Like, I don't even know who this person is. Like, these weird kind of demonic, creepy guys. So it's kind of like this ritual, like it set all this bad shit in motion, and it lasted for years. And it's hard to tell, well, is that just me kind of, once again conjuring my fantasies and kind of moving towards these guys that I think are like interesting bad boys or whatever, and they're just creeps,
Yeah.
or was it really that I like maybe slept with some demon who kind of I opened the astral portal so that living demons could find me and get with me? I don't know. Eventually it wore off, but it lasted for years, like years. It was scary. Like, I didn't realize it while it was happening, and I would have these flashes of moments of like, who is this person? Like, they don't seem, something very wrong here going on. So yeah, don't mess with magic, kids, unless you know
Wow.
what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a complicated answer because you already laid it out. Like, it's really hard to say if these were your beasts, that you had always had this fantasy in relation to, or if there was something more unexplainable happening, right? It's impossible to say, but it is spooky. And I do think that sexual encounters have a way of like showing us like the limits of how well we can know ourselves and our motivations. And that's a scary moment, even if you're like sleeping with like the nicest, most loving person in the world or something, right? Like a sexual encounter, if it takes a particular turn or something, it can show you the real limits of understanding and knowing yourself, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, I've had casual sex encounters that were actually just fabulous and wonderful, and there was nothing bad about it.
Yeah.
But the ones that I'm talking about, I realized during the moment, like, this guy is just bad. He's just bad all the way through. He's just bad.
That's scary. Yeah.
They're usually very charismatic. They're very good at, making you feel like they're so fascinating. And like, so the one that felt the most like, am I literally sleeping with a demon right now? I was at school and in college, and I remember, it's so ironic. I was literally sitting outside my dorm, studying for my Hinduism homework. And I did like a semester Buddhism and Hinduism, and this guy comes up, and I was to find out later he was a crackhead slam poet, who was friends with the local drug dealer who lived in my dorm because I was in like the druggy dorm. So he was just like a loser townie, just like coming to try to, get somebody like me who was dumb and sitting there doing their Hinduism homework. So we started talking, and he just seemed so fascinating. And he seemed so interesting, so fascinating. He had this big hypnotic green eyes. I'm a sucker for like hypnotic eyes. And we ended up sleeping together like probably not 30 minutes after we started talking. And as I was like on top of him and looking into his eyes, and I'm like, this guy is a demon.
That's fucked up.
He was creepy.
Oof, that's scary.
Yeah, it was really weird, very weird. But fortunately, I think of, now I'm married, so the demon guys can't get at me.
You have a shield? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
I got it out of my system eventually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Eventually. Took a while. All right.
Yeah.
So next question. Worst failure of communication on your part?
Yeah, I was thinking about this one. I don't think I have one specific answer, but I have like patterns when it comes to failures of communication. I have a habit, I've had a habit, and I've been able to break it at times, but then other times I really can't, of cutting off contact when I shouldn't necessarily cut off contact. And also, at the same time, letting the lines of communication be open when they shouldn't be open, when I should really close them down. Like, I think that's where I fail the most in my communication, is either letting something flourish that should not, or like going silent and cutting something off when I shouldn't do that either. I think those are where my big failures are.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a tough balance. You never know. You never know. It's hard to know what's right in the moment, and sometimes you don't know till years later, and you realize what happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but I think I do always know, and I just do the stupid thing, or not the stupid thing, but like shoot myself in the foot, cut myself off in a way.
So, like, in trying to protect yourself, you end up hurting yourself somehow.
Yeah, or in trying to hurt myself. It's probably more about self-abuse than self-protection.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way with like relationships in general and with guys, like how I used to be. I think I used to use men as a drug and a way to self-harm in certain ways,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want to do, I've never been like a cutter. I've never done anything like to actually physically hurt myself. So when you have somebody else doing it, you can blame them and be like, well, look at this asshole, but like you're the one that keeps going back to them. So I think especially in my early teens, I really, as a poet also, I really thrived off of that dynamic tension of like being in love with somebody and then getting thrown into a emotional roller coaster because they're mentally unstable and are bad at intimacy and stuff. And so then I have like all this material for poetry about being love ridden and
tortured,
yeah, tormented and love ridden, and all that. And then eventually, like, I was like, okay, I'm over this. Like, I want to be with a guy that can communicate. Like, I don't want to have to like do a treasure hunt to find out what you really think.
Yeah, completely. Okay, so talk to me about your biggest failure in communication.
I feel like this is the hardest question, and I feel like there's so many. It requires deeper self-contemplation than I want to do. When I started thinking about this, I just like, there were so many instances of just moments and but I have an example of one situation where I lost something that I cared about because of how I handled a situation. I was 16 and I was dating my first true love, and I was really, really in love. And his bipolar kind of kicked in as we were dating, like halfway through, and he started to like ignore me and shut down emotionally and stuff. And I didn't know what was happening, and he wasn't communicating with me, so that was his failure of communication. But eventually, then I had a dream that I was making out with a girl, with a friend of mine, and that's the first dream of that kind that I'd ever had. And I told another friend, and then she told me, oh, well, actually, this one mutual friend, not the one I dreamt about, but another one, she's actually into you. I'm like, really? Huh, that's interesting. So I just wasn't really like thinking, instead of like dealing with my boyfriend and being like, we need to communicate better, like I'm not happy in the relationship, I feel ignored, I feel like you don't care about me anymore. I just let that be what it was. And I started things with her.
Uh-huh.
And had my first encounters with another female.
Mhm.
And it was really cool and really sweet, and she was great, and we get along really well, and it was really fun because we were like friends and that was going on, so it was just fun and really innocent and nice. And it would have been great if, you know, he hadn't been in the picture. And, you know, retrospect, I should have just broken up with him, honestly.
Yeah.
And just actually taken this relationship with this girl seriously, because she really cared about me. And I was just kind of using her so that I could have my first female sexual experience. And I didn't really I wasn't in love with her. I liked her a lot, but I wasn't like swept up the way I was with him. I wasn't obsessed the way I was with him. So eventually a mutual friend told him about it. And he then broke up with me. Cited that as the reason, which I don't know. I still kind of feel it's bullshit because we were barely together anyway, but whatever.
Yeah.
Gonna cover up for myself. I did do something wrong. And I did betray his trust, and he was totally justified in feeling betrayed and hurt. So he broke up with me. I was heartbroken, and so then I immediately broke up with her, because, you know, without him, nothing meant anything, and I just broke up with her in the worst way too. I was just like, well, we can be friends. It's fine. You know, like, it was just like, it was no big deal. Like, so she was really hurt and really offended and was like, what the fuck? Like, you're just like, oh, we can just go back to being friends, and, you know, this fun dalliance is over and whatever, it's fine. It's no big deal, you know, and it was a big deal to her. So not only did I lose her in that way, but I lost her as a friend, which that I really did miss. And I really, you know, it was a really huge blow losing, you know, I lost everything, you know, within a period of like a week. And I lost the other mutual friend too, because she thought I was a total user, bitch, narcissist or whatever. So yeah, so it was all just very sad.
Yeah, well, that's multiple failures of communication, right? That's not just yours. There's also the boyfriend who's having episodes and not really present at all. I'm not able to talk to you about that. And then there's the friend telling the boyfriend why to blow things up, to hurt you. Like, you know, this is a complex situation.
Yeah, it was like a chain reaction of failures of communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was a mess. It was a mess.
Oh.
I was the apex of that triangle. You know, making the mess go on. You know,
An agent of chaos.
Yeah.
It's impossible. I mean, that's why we're talking about this, right? Because so much of what we're seeing in the pages of Black Telephone magazine is people grappling with this, struggling with this, hating other people and themselves because of all of this, desperately trying to fix it, knowing it's impossible to fix it. Like, it's just the failures of communication. That's, yeah, like there's always room for that in artwork.
Yeah.
Always.
I mean, communication's hard. I think it's the biggest challenge. You know, it's what we try so hard for so long to do it. Like, we just talked to Clay McLeod Chapman, who wrote Room with a Boo, and he was talking about how he feels like he's constantly dealing with failures of communication, and
on his part, right?
He's so, you know, he's writing, he's doing theater, he's an actor. Like, these are all the art forms that have to do with communication, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
But it's different when you're in the moment, when you're just in the moment and it's messy.
Yeah.
Versus you can sit in a room and write something and proofread it and edit it and go over it and get it just right so it saying exactly what you wanted to say.
Yep. And you have all the time in the world to do it. And you don't have that pressure of being in the moment and not having the right thing to say right then and there, or having it but not knowing how to say it, or not having the guts to say it, right? As a writer, you get all of this distance to just contemplate what you want to say, how you're going to say it, and like to make it land with force that you can't always do in real life,
Yeah.
person to person.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, I love that this magazine, we have different themes, but obviously it is called Black Telephone. So communication is kind of the theme that runs through all of it.
Okay, I guess this concludes our interview.
Yep. Communication. Ghosts, breakups, bad girlfriends and boyfriends, beast men.
Unsent letters,
Mm,
bad habits.
that is crazy. That's probably the craziest thing I've heard, honestly.
Really? Oh, I think I have some of those people in my life.
Yeah.
Always have.
Well, hopefully you won't end up dead.
I mean, one day I will, but hopefully I have a little while longer.
Or mysterious circumstances with a letter by you or something.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess we're gonna hang up the telephone for now. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
Read Black Telephone and send us something. Send us something interesting and that you feel you can share with the world.